From a woman who vanished attempting to circumnavigate the globe, to a man who disappeared without a trace during a rescue mission, we take a look through 10 famous people who mysteriously vanished. Number 10. Amelia Earhart. In 1932, Amelia Earhart became the first civilian to receive the Distinguished Flying Cross Award. She received the award for being the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Earhart had grown up flying planes with her father, but it was this event that propelled the pilot not only to stardom, but also her eventual disappearance. Earhart vanished on July 2, 1937, while piloting a Lockheed Model 10 Electra in an attempt at circumnavigating the globe. Forced to end their $4 million search on July 19, 1937, Naval and Coast Guard relief efforts found no evidence of the missing plane. 2 years later, due to a death in absentia plea, Earhart was finally declared dead. Number 9. Henry Hudson. Henry Hudson was one of the greatest explorers during the Age of Exploration and is the namesake for the Hudson River and Hudson Bay. Hudson made 2 attempts to find the famed Northwest Passage to China, but was unsuccessful. After settling in for a winter on a beach in James Bay, Hudson wanted to continue pursuing the famed passage to the west, but his crew disagreed and rebelled. The crew wrested control of Discovery and set Hudson adrift on an open boat along with his son and 7 crew members. Hudson attempted to pursue Discovery in the open boat, but the ship set their sails and outran the small craft. Hudson and his small party were marooned in his namesake Hudson Bay and never seen or heard from again. Number 8. Jimmy Hoffa. With a checkered past that included convictions for fraud, jury tampering, and bribery, it came as no surprise to many that Jimmy Hoffa made some enemies as a labor union activist. However, it may have been his involvement with organized crime through the International Brotherhood of Teamsters that led to his disappearance. Hoffa rose through the ranks and was eventually elected president of the IBT. But his illegal dealings led to an intense investigation from Robert F. Kennedy, and he was eventually sentenced to a total of 13 years in prison. Hoffa's sentence was commuted by Richard Nixon after less than 5 years served, and he enjoyed nearly 4 years of freedom before disappearing from an affluent Detroit suburb on July 30, 1975. Hoffa was apparently scheduled to meet with 2 organized crime and Teamsters bosses. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement and investigative journalists, Hoffa's fate remains unknown. Hoffa was legally declared dead 7 years after his disappearance, and speculation of his fate continues to this day. Number 7. D.B. Cooper. The man known only as Dan Cooper hijacked Northwest Airlines 305 the day before Thanksgiving in 1971. Armed with a briefcase bomb, Cooper demanded and received $200,000 from authorities before releasing all the passengers at the Seattle airport. With both pilots and 1 flight attendant remaining, Cooper's plane left Seattle for Portland. 45 minutes into the flight, Cooper donned a parachute, strapped the bank money to his chest, and jumped off the plane. A military search party 1,000 men strong scoured the area of Cooper's flight path without ever finding a body or a parachute. Matching serial numbers on a $6,000 stack of money were found by a young boy in 1980, but it wasn't enough evidence for the FBI to learn anything new about the elusive thief. Number 6. John Cabot. John Cabot is the legendary explorer credited with being the first European to reach mainland North America since the Vikings. Cabot was born Giovanni Caboto in Italy, although the exact location remains disputed. Cabot sailed for England and set sail on his first journey from Bristol in search of a lost island in the Atlantic Ocean and the valuable dyes that could be harvested. Cabot's first journey was unsuccessful, but his second journey was an overwhelming success, and Cabot landed at Cape Bonavista in Newfoundland. Cabot returned to England as a hero for claiming the new land for England. Cabot was given fame and fortune, but continued planning for a future voyage. In May 1478, Cabot set sail from Bristol once again with 5 ships in his party. A storm forced 1 ship to return, but the 4 remaining ships sailed on and were never heard from again. Number 5. Roald Amundsen. Roald Amundsen is regarded as being one of the most beloved explorers of the 20th century. He was a man capable of withstanding extraordinary suffering from the extreme elements that he faced while exploring Antarctica and the North Pole. Amundsen led the first exploration that reached the South Pole. and he led the first expedition to undisputedly reach the North Pole. He heroically set out with a small party aboard a plane to search for members of a crashed airship from an Umberto Nobile. Amundsen and his crew vanished without a trace on their rescue mission. A recent 2009 Norwegian Navy expedition to find the wreckage returned nothing. Number 4. Glenn Miller. From 1939 to 1943, Glenn Miller was the best-selling recording artist in America as the leader of his big band. At the peak of his success in the music industry, Miller made the decision to join the war effort by playing shows around the world to entertain American troops serving abroad. Miller convinced military officials to create the Army Air Force Band, and he was appointed leader and the rank of major. The 50-piece band played over 800 performances while giving a much-needed update to the stiff marches typically found in the military. While flying from the United Kingdom to play for soldiers stationed in Paris, Miller's plane disappeared over the English Channel. Miller is still listed as missing in action. Number 3. Andrew Carnegie Whitfield. Andrew Carnegie Whitfield was the nephew of American steel magnate Andrew Carnegie. He was a Princeton graduate and a successful business executive that enjoyed a hobby as an aviator in his Taylor Club airplane. Whitfield took off from a Roosevelt airfield on Long Island and was scheduled to land about 20 minutes later in Brentwood, New York. Whitfield's plane carried enough fuel for a 150-mile journey, but was never heard from again, and the plane was never located. Evidence of him checking into a hotel under an assumed name exists, and many of his personal effects, including passport and life insurance policies, were uncovered. Number 2. Oscar Zeta Acosta. For many, Oscar Zeta Acosta will be remembered as Dr. Gonzo, the outlandish legal associate of Hunter S. Thompson in his famous Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Acosta was an accomplished author, Chicano activist, and attorney that had drawn the ire of the Los Angeles Police Department. He had an unsuccessful campaign to become sheriff of Los Angeles County, but still managed to receive 100,000 votes in the process. While traveling in Sinaloa, Mexico, Acosta allegedly phoned his son just before disappearing, and his location has never been determined. Thompson later said his friend suffered from an amphetamine addiction, and his penchant for the drug may have led to his disappearance. Number 1. Jim Gray. Jim Gray is one of the greatest computer scientists and changed the way that computing takes place. In 1988, he was honored with the Turing Award, computing's equivalent to the Nobel Prize for his contributions in the field of database and transaction processing. On January 28, 2007, Jim Gray set sail aboard his yacht Tenacious to scatter his mother's ashes near the Farallon Islands off San Francisco, California. Emergency location beacons were never activated, and no trace of him or his 40-foot yacht were ever found. An extensive search involving the U.S. Coast Guard and satellite imaging revealed nothing. In 2012, 5 years after his disappearance, he was legally declared dead.